So, why do we cook? Should we cook? Why not just order in and have someone else cook for you? Because we live in India with our parents and a lot of help. I'm going to think back about my journey and where I started, which was right out of college. I moved away from home and I started the first few months eating some really, really, really bad food. So bad. I moved out of Bangalore and I was living in Delhi. And it was so cold. I had no idea how to prepare for winter in Delhi because no one told me about, you have to layer up to stay warm. So I didn't know how to stay warm physically, but also I didn't know how to stay warm emotionally, if you know what I mean. I didn't know how to feed myself. I didn't know what it meant to nourish myself, what it meant to make myself feel at home. And I spent those first few months just miserable. But then I had the extreme good fortune of moving into a home with this Punjabi family. And they were really incredible. They had moved to India many, many years ago at the time of the partition. And they looked at everything in a way that I had never looked at anything before. They valued the everyday, the simple things in such an incredible way. The woman that I lived with, I kid you not, she woke up every morning and she would dust and polish her refrigerator like it was the most precious thing in her house. So that changed a lot of things for me and my experience of living outside. But the most interesting thing for me was the way they looked at food, the way they cooked food, the way they handled produce. They were vegetarian. And what I learned about food from them was that they would shop with the simplest, freshest, everyday ingredients. And everything was treated with so much care. And that changed the way that I looked at food. When I think about breakfast in winter, it was hot gobi parathas with a generous side of white butter made at home. But instead of feeling cold the first few months that I had found the Delhi winter so cruel, I found that I was sitting out on the balcony with her, wrapped in her shawl. We would sip on mugs of hot adrak tea and we would each munch on one pinni that she had made the previous morning. And if you've made pinni or eaten a homemade pinni, then you know what kind of absolute love goes into it, because you're rolling that dough when it's burning hot and your palms are just burning and hot with oil. And summers were something else, because summers were about the lightest, freshest dals. I had no idea dal could be this delicious. And every lunch was punctuated with glasses of cold, full-fat milk, because that's how they drink milk in Delhi, with a different variety of mango at the end of each meal. I know it's kind of a cliche to think about you have to take the long way around before you can come back and appreciate all the amazing things that you grew up with. But it changed the way that I looked at my own food, the way that I experienced kachimor and carrot thorin and things that, all of us grew up rolling our eyes at. I looked at it with a new understanding and an appreciation for the nuance that went into treating the same ingredients. In Delhi and in Kerala, many of the ingredients are the same. The spices are similar. But the technique that they handle it with, the fats that it's cooked in, all of that makes such a world of difference to how each cuisine is experienced. So after that, I moved to Bombay, and it was pretty bad because I had Chinese takeout for the first few months. And then I realized that eating well was a large part of living well. And even though I lived in my little one-bedroom studio with no windows, I felt like if I changed the way that I ate and if I was able to cook a little bit for myself, it could drastically change the way that I experienced living in Bombay. And so that's when I started my journey with cooking. I say it's a journey because it's ongoing. You never really, the goalpost keeps changing. But the exciting thing about it is that you start to notice different things, not just about the way something is cooked, but about yourself. And that's why I believe that it's important to cook. Today we're making a classic whiskey sour. It's a straightforward, no frills recipe, and it's absolutely delicious. We start with a lime. You can take the local variety of lime, but today we felt fancy, so we took this one. I would say this is what I do. I roll it out a little bit to get all the juices really going. You're gonna slice up your lime and squeeze out your juice. And then you can slice a nice wedge of orange, because we're going to use that later for garnish. And then let's bring up our cocktail mixer. We're going to throw in some ice, and we're going to use 15 ml of the lime juice that we prepped beforehand, 30 ml of a nice whiskey. There are lots of great indie brands, so I would recommend going with one of those. And then we'll use a bit of sugar syrup. So this is variable depending on how sweet you like it, but I'd say about 20 ml is good. Sugar syrup or simple syrup is just equal parts sugar and water. You bring it to a boil, let it melt, and store it. You can have a stash handy in your fridge for whenever you need it. And then close up your cocktail mixer. Shake, 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 shake. Shake it for a really long time because temperature is really key to the experience of a cocktail. Then you find the prettiest cocktail glass at home. If you have access to beautiful ice, that makes the experience of your cocktail even prettier. So I would recommend splurging on the ice. Plop in an ice cube. Garnish. And sometimes creating something beautiful for yourself is as simple as that. Join me. Cheers. Sorry, I had to say cheers. Okay, so indulge me and come with me on this journey. I'm going to say step 1 to learning how to cook, before we learn why to cook, is to pay attention to yourself. Pay attention to what makes you feel safe, what makes you feel like home, and what makes you feel more like yourself. Because food and cooking is a big part of identity. So I know, for example, that I don't want my sambar to be too sweet. I want my sambar to be tangy from the tamarind. I want it to have that hit of hing. And I want it to be full of vegetables just like my mother used to make it. I also know that when I make a fish fry, I want to have it burnt just a little bit so that I can scrape up all the burnt bits and throw in some rice in there. And then I'm going to eat it because that's how my mom would eat it. And that always looked like the best part of the meal. Cooking for yourself and the journey to finding what it means to feed yourself and what feels like home to yourself is a large part of that. It's very much like driving. That's how I like to think about it. And the other reason that I believe everyone should learn how to cook, it allows you to be a creator. And I know a lot of people think that, I'm not a musician, I'm not an artist, I can't draw, I can't sketch, I'm not a filmmaker or a photographer. But you know what? You can cook. You can learn how to slice an onion. You can learn how to saute some garlic in coconut oil. And when you see what comes out of that, it's the same as art, because the end result is greater than the sum of its parts. That's what creating is about. With art, you got to show up every day and do a little bit. And I can tell you the first few times you're going to suck at it, because I suck at it. I do art with my toddler, and I can tell you the first few times I tried watercolor, it was horrible. But you know what I started to enjoy? It was the process of doing it. It was kind of magical. You kind of lose yourself when you're doing it. You become absorbed in the process, and that's the magic of being in the creative space. It's like the elusive runner's high, which is why marathoners put themselves through that crazy 42-kilometer thing that I will never understand, but I can understand chopping onions, sauteing a little bit of ginger and garlic in oil. That's something I can get behind. I know that smell is going to make everyone feel like home. First, figure out what is that memory that you want to be transported to. Go home and write down that recipe. And I'm not saying call them and get the recipe on the phone. Go home and watch the person who makes it for you actually make it. So pay attention when they're cooking it for you. Be fully present in that moment. And then finally, go back home and do it for yourself. Do it 1, 2, 3 times. It's gonna suck, just suck it up and eat it. But follow through and stay for the 4th time. Because when you do it the 4th time, you're gonna find a little bit of magic in that process. You're gonna slow down and be in the moment and say, hey, this is kind of enjoyable. I could get down with this. And then when you've made it, and I'm telling you by the 4th time, it's gonna be good. So take a moment and find a spot for yourself and sit down and eat it. Share it, don't share it. I say don't share it. And realize that you did that for yourself. And doing that for yourself is where the magic is. That's the radical act of self-love. And that's why everyone should cook.